If not, if you're looking like agricultural, full-on commodity industry, currently, probably agree with me, there's no better way to do it than ethanol. I mean, ethanol has historically been the extraction method for pretty much anything that's extracted. Right now, whether it's hot or cold ethanol, that's just technicalities at this point. But if you look at the history of it, I don't think there's anything more scalable and more sustainable than ethanol extraction. And so yeah.
So as we go up, so I think the boutique aspect is where it is. It's like, yes, if you just want to get in and have a CBD product and have the easiest path to formulation, having a product that's fairly refined definitely makes it easier. As we get into more whole plant medicine and things that still have, especially when I'm really thinking about internally, not necessarily smokable, but internals and topicals like tinctures and those kinds of things, because that's generally where I play. You want to have, as close to just eating the whole plant as you can, right? I think this should lead us into the next part of the conversation that I want to ask the panel about this fresh frozen thing that's happening. So fresh frozen basically in our industry is a term for cutting the plants while they're fresh and then freezing them immediately. It's an interesting thing for farmers because there is a big risk proposition, especially on the craft cannabis side, between harvesting and drying. On the agricultural CBD side, not so much, but some farmers are learning the hard way that you can't just cut your CBD plants and allow them to dry in the field. Like even the extractors are gonna push back on you at that point, right? You have to have some good curing methodology, some good drying practices to set up good input product for your extractors, right? But the fresh frozen aspect suggests that we de-risk that by cutting the plants right before they're cured and harvested, before they're cured and dried, and freezing them. Now, in our shop, we take those plants frozen, we essentially wash them in ice water, which breaks off those crystals, filters out, and when we filter, use these filters to get lots of little trichome heads and put that in a freeze dryer. And you guys know a freeze dryer, dry sublimation basically doesn't break down the cell structure, but just evaporates the water so that you actually still have these little balls of trichomes, and we call that 6-star hash. Okay, so that's a great aspirational product, but the yield there is literally in the single digits, of less than 5 sometimes. It's not scalable, it's super expensive, and it's truly a craft product and has the scalability I've tried for the last year, it's very hard. That being said, on the light hydrocarbon side, fresh frozen is pretty popular because the pressure of butane gas can make that work, and you can run it completely cold. My question would be to the cryoethanol folks or the ethanol folks, like, have you guys had any experience using fresh flowers for extraction? Because the reason the current methodology, as we talk about terpenes, is the fresh plant. If you've had an opportunity to see a fresh plant versus a dry plant, has a whole bunch more terpenes, right? When we dry it, a lot of those volatile organic compounds dry off in the curing process, but many more are present. I'm not exactly sure what they do, just like with and these products, our products are usually THCA as well. I don't know what that does in a tincture either, to be quite honest. I know it's popular, everybody's leaning into the acids, leaning into the fresh terpenes. So just putting that out there, what experience have you guys had with this fresh frozen stuff? Any? Not working with ethanol, not tried yet?
No, we haven't tried fresh material yet. The low yield you mentioned, is that factoring in all that water weight? It is.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the broken fruit, if we think about the trichomes of fruit, we know definitively that it's just going out in the water. And same thing with water-soluble terpenes. I am working on a water reclamation process to see if we can get a better extraction rate, because those terpenes go somewhere, and a lot of it is left in the product, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I have plenty of experience.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're battling a lot of water. When we're talking about frozen wet material, the volume, mostly water, like 70-80% is water, right? So what we've seen is we can absolutely get the same hydrocarbon results, all right? There's preparatory steps that must be followed leading up to the extraction, which is basically make sure that material is cold and frozen, all right? And then as long as that ethanol is at the temperature where the ideal range is, you're going to get the same exact color, scent, flavor, everything across the board is going to be 1-to-1 when compared to a hydrocarbon. The problem is that you have to run it by the barrel, right, to get 15 grams. Right. because it's all, and so, again, it's also very boutique, very craft. Is it possible to do with cryoethanol? Absolutely. Is it possible to create a smokable product like a live resin with a cryoethanol? Absolutely. You might lose a little bit more terps because the purge process is going to be a little bit more, abrasive to the product. But as far as color and, within a 1% differentiator of, terpene content compared to a hydrocarbon, yeah, it's absolutely doable. But very boutique.
Yeah, I now understand. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yes, when we calculate our extraction rate, we do calculate the dry weight, we try to buy it from the farmers at 5x, but we use 4x because I think that's the real weight. Right. But we try to get the 5x from the farmers to get a little bit better price on the fresh frozen. Do you have any thoughts on it, Alex? Fresh frozen?
I don't.
No. All right. Well, look. Next thing that we wanted to talk about was I wanted to mention another type of extraction methodology. It's not unlike fresh frozen. It's called rosin pressing. I think I touched on it before. For those of you who don't know, rosin pressing. Also, the first time I heard it, I was doing light hydrocarbon in Denver, and I was like, this Denver Student Union has sensible drug people, and they were like putting on a panel. I'm sitting next to this guy, total like dread, and he's talking about like rosin and squishing buds. I'm like, that is never going to be a thing. Well, it's a thing, and it's not, again, scalability, we haven't cracked it, but it is our equivalent of cold pressed olive oil, right? It is that way where we are basically just using pressure to get oil out.
Now, can you genuinely, wholeheartedly claim cold press though?
No, it's hot. I mean, yeah, the plates are like 185 degrees. And it's true, terpenes are lost, and we're not done correctly, especially on like what we call our food grade rosin. It's like, it definitely has like, I'm not gonna say it's burned, but like, I think where the proof is in the chips after. We try to usually do a secondary process with them, and they tend to have a flavor of the heat press. Yeah, so it's definitely, now, what would be interesting is if we ever were at a point biomass-wise, right? So here's another thing that's happening with this industry. I think these gentlemen have come to the right conclusion, and I think if you're going forth with a business mindset, you have to take a hard look at cryoethanol where the industry is today. I like to also always look at that higher bar of like where we can get closer to the farm, closer to the quality, and more importantly, we're just coming out of prohibition, even on the hemp side. It's only now that the nation has the hemp bill. Sure, Oregon and Colorado and Vermont, and maybe Kentucky, we're a little bit, in South Carolina, we're maybe a little ahead of us, but it's only now that we're really coming out of both hemp and cannabis prohibition. I think soon we will have the biomass to do different things, right? Even some of these lower extraction rates may provide products that, while more expensive, are at least somewhat affordable, right? That being said, I hope that there's a time where we have enough biomass that we can just coldly put pressure on it and see what comes out. I just can't waste that kind of cannabis right now. All right, so let me see how we are on time. Oh, we're doing perfect. So we have another 10 minutes. Why don't I open it up to questions for the panelists or myself? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so my question is about the process. Most of the processes, if I understand correctly, that you're talking about are batch processes. Has there been any effort to look at continuous processes, like from the chemical engineering side of things, mixer settlers or counterflow contactors for doing the separations? That would certainly scale much more effectively than these batch processes.
Eric? Okay.
Yeah, those technologies, countercurrent extraction, they're being utilized in this industry already. There are
the precision Vulcan,
and yeah, I believe Deutsche makes one as well. Now you're into some serious capital equipment costs again because
so it exists.
Yeah,
the technology is being put together. What we're doing at Capna obviously is also trying to fit that model. That model didn't really exist up until like 6 months ago. Nobody was harvesting hundreds of thousands of acres of a product that you needed to extract like this. So everything that was happening in the United States for the cannabis industry, which was the THC industry, much smaller.
And by necessity, more mobile.
Correct. You got to get
past that just a little bit.
Right, so the batch processing is, it was kind of the standard because nobody was really, running, 300,000 pounds per.
24/7, yeah.
Correct, right. So The technologies are catching up right now, and Deutsch, you're right, but again, it's multi-million-dollar system. I think the Vulcan is also about 3.5, but it's like 4,000 amps, and that's not the way we do things.
So yeah, so that's it.
Yeah.
As one thing, you bring up good points about the industry. I've been in business almost 4 years, and I'm only now building my first GMP facility. We did get to back into this, so we have great equipment, but like I look at my equipment sometimes, I'm like, I can't put a Ferrari and park it on the street. So given my facility, I can only get this equipment. Most cannabis definitely on the THC side, and I think there's a little bit more money, and I think CBD's been deployed in, because natural products manufacturers adopted it, so I think they were a little bit more ahead in how they conduct the facilities that they started in. But before you get a piece of equipment, you have to have a facility that has that kind of amperage, has some safety protocols, and then by then you're already down the road of proper SOPs and GMP type manufacturing, which is really new to our industry and not even required on the THC side here in California or any state as far as I'm concerned right now.
If I may, what we've seen from the equipment manufacturing side is all of the farmers put seed in, and all of the businessmen and investors and all of the people that are trying to come into the extraction game are just starting to do that right now. So all of the farmers that took down in October, they're probably going to lose their crop. There's simply not enough hemp extraction facilities anywhere in the United States. Maybe 3, 4 big ones, major. And I'm sorry, maybe I haven't heard of you guys.
We're not a major big one.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm talking about where you would have a Chinese continuous flow, fully automatic facility. I think there's two or three that I've heard of. One of them is just going up live right now.
Are you thinking of building one?
He's already built one.
Any other questions?
Loaded question.
Questions? Yes?
How much the biomass source can affect this method of the extraction?
I'm sorry?
The biomass source, like when the hemp coming from different species of CBD coming from different species of hemp, how that can have impact on the process that you are suggesting?
Absolutely zero. The difference that you're going to see in your extract is probably going to be constituents in that extract, right? So a different, let's say, strain of hemp, let's just call them strain A and strain B. Strain A will have 16% CBD, 1% CBN, and so on and so forth. Strain B will have 5% CBD, 6% CBG, 1% CBC. That's the only difference. As far as the efficacy of the ethanol extraction process to be able to remove the constituents on that plant, that's not going to change. What doesn't matter if you put lavender in this process. If there's an external oil on this plant, the ethanol will take it. Does that answer the question? Yes.
Questions? No? Okay. Well, look, I think we're right on time, 5 minutes early. If you guys have any other questions, I'm sure the panelists will be around. But thanks for listening to us talk about contemplate different extraction methodologies.